Hey, and welcome to Code to Cloud, and I'm Kevin Evans. In this episode, we're talking about careers, cloud careers, technical careers, everything in between. And we're on episode 4 of this track, and we're going to be talking about certifications. And just before we can, bring up the whiteboard as we normally do, um, if you like what you're watching, if you think the content's great, I'm loving the feedback so far, the thumbs up, but don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and repeat. So let's get started. So let me bring up my trusty whiteboard. So again, we're going to work through the whiteboard, left to right, north to south. And this is based off my experience. This is what I've carried out. What's worked for me, coming from the infrastructure and security background. And obviously with some of those DevOps skill sets as well in between. So I have mixed views on certifications. Now, they've really helped me out during my career, but as you get more experienced, you realize that they're just a validation of a point in time of your skill set that you've got there and then. They're a great starting point for if you don't know where to start or what you need. I've always found it like it's more of a discovery process. So as you go through learning the materials and the curriculum and actually passing the certification, you realize where you need to go and what you need to go and learn next. So I've tried to break this down into a couple of sections. So again, as we always start to the left, is what certs do I need? Which ones do I need for my job, right? So if we're coming from that infrastructure / security lens, then we need to break that down. And this can be quite ambiguous, quite large when you first look at it. And these, most of this is going to be tailored towards Microsoft Azure as well. But then there's also some other third-party certifications that I think are going to really help you pursue your cloud career, your tech career in general. So if we look here, we've got fundamentals, right? We just zoom in. We've got the famous gold standard CompTIA A+. Now, when I was at college, I studied for the A+. It's like a gold standard in IT. So it's been around forever, pretty much, but it's a really good exam to get you started to understand the fundamentals of tech, especially when it comes to infrastructure. You can't go really wrong with having this. It's very it's independent of certain technologies, which makes it really good as well. But if you go to the website CompTIA.org, go to certifications, and then scroll down to the A+. This is what you'll learn. You'll learn the basics around hardware, so identifying, using, connecting hardware components, devices, broad knowledge about different devices necessary to support remote workforce, right? So just the basic and the fundamentals. I remember when I was doing this in college, they would teach me how to mount CPUs on motherboards, fit memory modules. How does storage look, right? This is more the physical side of things. The basics of networking, right? Which you've really got to get a grip on. So understanding TCP, Wi-Fi, SOHO routers, that kind of thing, right? Mobile devices, operating systems, we talked about that in the skill sets, right? So install and support Windows OS, right? But also learn about Linux OS as well. The skill set that's going to live with you for the rest of your life, troubleshooting, right? Something that you'll develop over time. But again, understand the fundamentals. Virtualization and cloud computing. Again, the basics and the concepts of that, right? So if we think about cloud computing was born out of virtualization, right? Of how do I get more from my hardware? How do I set up several servers from one physical server? That kind of thing. So understanding virtualization is really important, especially when you're dealing with virtual machines in Azure and how that works. And then some basic concepts around cloud computing as well. Software troubleshooting, basic security, operational procedures. Like I can't stress enough. Like when I did this back in 2000 and let's say 2005, 2006, it really set me up for success. It was a real agnostic approach, right? And gave me a really good foundation to move forward. So you should go and check that out. Same, they do a Network Plus as well, which is a bit more advanced. And then we have one called the AZ900 for Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So the AZ900 is really your entry level, what is Azure certification, right? And you can actually pass this in your own home office, right? Or from a quiet place. It's done all remotely. And you take it with Pearson VUE, I believe. So you can sign up for this and get yourself an accreditation, right? So if you have a look here, if we go to the AZ900 Microsoft Learn exam page, we have that, you can describe Azure architectural components and Azure services such as compute, virtual machines, networking, storage, similar to what was in the A+, right? And it says you should have these skills and experience working within an area IT, such as infrastructure management, database management, software development. This is really an entry-level guide of what Azure is and what services are available. So it's a really good starting place. There's a study guide here as well, right? Always check out the study guide. We'll check that out dead quickly. Basically gives you what you need to do to pass the exam. So that's the fundamentals. That will give you like the broad knowledge, or the starting space, as I like to call it. But then if we go over to more like the infrastructure track, and the thing I've loved about infrastructure is that it's always been broad, and you can pivot to technologies because you pretty much deploy anything, right? So you deploy services for apps, services for communication, so like networking or security or compute, right? All roads lead to infrastructure. So having a good understanding of how that works, and it'll give you the ability to pivot as well. So if we look at like the AZ104, it's the Microsoft Azure Administrator exam, which I've got here. This is where things start heating up. It's a really good place to start. If you feel like you've got the experience or the knowledge, you can pretty much skip the AZ900 and move on to this. But as it states here, as a candidate for this exam, you should have subject matter expertise in implementing, managing, and monitoring an organization's Microsoft Azure environment, including virtual networks, storage, compute, identity, security, governance. It says here, right, that you should have basic engagements with Azure networking, security database, application development, and DevOps solutions, because it'll touch on all of these areas. And then if we go back to some of the skills that I mentioned in previous episodes, you should be familiar with operating systems, networking, servers, and virtualization. So that's where the A+ comes back in, right? And then in addition to this, you should have experience with PowerShell, Azure CLI, the Azure portal, Microsoft Azure Resource Manager templates, and Microsoft Entra ID, previously known as Azure AD. So it's quite broad. This is a bit of a Christmas list in terms of the skills that you need. Now, whenever I've taken a certification, I've been able to study for it. Now, if I've got the hands-on experience, it makes things a lot easier, right? But it doesn't mean that you actually need it to take the exam. It helps, but you can still lab this up, still get practical knowledge, right? That kind of thing. Still get experience with using the Azure portal, like sign up for a free account, which we've discussed about previously. But this is a really good place to start. It will give you a huge range across the Azure platform to understand what you like doing as well, right? So you do this, you may find that you like, I don't know, the DevOps aspect, or you're into databases or application development, right? So this will really give you like the tools of the trade, right? When you start to use Azure, right? In anger. I've also included like the AC700. So if you like networking, Go and check that out. And then there's the AZ305, and I'm going to talk about this further along, right, when we look at role-based certifications. That's designed in Microsoft Azure Infrastructure Solutions. So actually becoming a cloud solution architect or certifying as a cloud solution architect for Microsoft Azure. And then I've also included HashiCorp Certified Terraform Associate. Now, when I was starting off in Infrastructure as a Code land, I took this exam. So from memory, it was multiple choice. I've got it here. It's a really good place to start as it opens your mind, right? So you're working outside of the perimeter, right, of Azure, if that makes sense. This is where those tools sort of lay in between cloud solution providers, right? So the HashiCorp Certified Terraform Associate exam, like it says here, this certification is for cloud engineers specializing in operations, IT, or development, who knows basics, concepts, and skills associated with HashiCorp Terraform. This person understands the difference in functionality between Terraform Cloud, Terraform Enterprise, and Terraform Community. So a lot of us use Terraform Community or OpenTofu these days. This is a really good place to get your entry-level knowledge into the infrastructure as a code world, right? I believe it's $70. It lasts for 2 years. It looks really good on your resume, LinkedIn profile again. But let's just quickly look at the exam objectives. You know, explain what infrastructure as a code is, describing the advantages of infrastructure as a code patterns, which becomes really important if you're going to go down that platform engineering route later on. Explaining in multi-cloud and provider agnostic benefits, right? You know, how state works, right? So how do we, what is our desired state? These are the concepts that you need to learn, right? Outside of the Microsoft stack, right? As we approach this sort of cloud native approach. And then there's understanding the basics, getting Terraform up and running, describing plugins, etc., etc. I really like doing this certification. When I started doing this, I think it took me a couple of goes to get it, but I renew it every couple of years now. So Microsoft doesn't have one at the moment for Bicep, which is the domain specific language or infrastructure as a code tool for Microsoft Azure, but hopefully we should get one in the next couple of years. That'll be good, right? So, and then I'll put security as well. So security is quite broad. It's become its own role, which is really good to see. So we've got like the SE100 for the Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect. Then we've got the AZ500. I've got both of these, the SE100 and the AZ500. So it's a Microsoft Azure Security Technologies Engineer certification. That's really good to have. And then I've included like the SC200 Operations Analyst and the SC300 Identity and Access Administrator, right? Because identity is our new boundary, right? You know, folks traditionally think of the network being the boundary for our environment. Well, it sort of is, but identity is the number one boundary, right? When we talk about cloud. So I've come up with some examples here of, because there was a lot to digest. If we think about fundamentals, infrastructure, and security. So I've given some examples here to get you started. So beginner, 1 to 2 years, because you need to build a experience up as well as taking these certifications. So we included the A+, the AZ900, and the GitHub Foundations. So I did an episode with Andrew Brown a couple of weeks back. Go and check it out in the playlist. And we talked about GitHub Foundation certificates or GitHub certifications. We talked about how it's like you're expected to know how to use GitHub, Git, these kind of tools. And we talked about that in the technical skill set session. But it's a bit like you should know how to use Outlook or Word or Excel. It's sort of expected. And that sort of sometimes gets lost in translation. So getting this GitHub Foundation cert is going to give you a great entry point on how to figure out how to use Git in the right way or GitHub in the right way, right? So again, there's a Microsoft Learn path. Go and check that out. Introduction to Git, introduction to GitHub, you know, GitHub Copilot, code spaces, all the good stuff that you would use around your infrastructure as a code tooling or your platform engineering practices. Like I said, there should be a link on the screen or in the description to go and check out that episode I did with Andrew Brown. But I can't stress enough how important you need to get this right, because you will be storing all of your code in GitHub, or if you're using Azure DevOps. That's a story for another day. So that's in our beginner. That's a good place to start, right? But if you've got a bit more experience and you want to take on a bigger challenge, then obviously check out the AZ-104, the Network Plus, the SC-100. And then I've included this. So it's the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator. So this one's a bit more pricier. Now, if you're waiting to take these exams, I always check out the Black Friday offers. They always seem to be doing better. But if you want to learn how to become to get an accreditation around the Linux operating systems. Now, I know Red Hat's got one as well. I'll be honest, I've never taken a certification for an operating system. Maybe I did back in the day with Windows Server. I think it was like 2003. I'm showing my age a little bit here. But I've always learned just by installing Linux at home, using it in the workplace, and that kind of thing, right? That's where my experience came from. So if you really want to know how to do it properly or understand how it works, come and check out the certification from the Linux Foundation, right? These are the custodians of Linux as well. So this certification is going to be pretty good. This certification is valid for 3 years. And I think you get a free one retake, right? Because taking an exam is difficult, especially if you haven't experienced a certification issuing body's, accreditation platform before, right? So do I pass the exams first time round? Sometimes, not all the time. Every certificate issuer is different. So it's experience that you've got to build up and learn how to take certifications as well. But as we can see here, right, in the domains and competencies, operations deployments, configuring kernel parameters gets pretty deep pretty quickly, right? Networking keeps on coming up again. It's different for different operating systems. Storage, see, there's a common theme here, right? Essential commands, that kind of thing, right? Basic Git operations. Goes back to the GitHub conversation that we were just having. So yeah, check that out. Put the AZ-700 back in there again if you're into networking in Azure, the Terraform Associate, and then I've also included the KCNA. So do you know what? Like when I talk about cloud native technologies, again, you'll see we're back at the Linux Foundation page. It's not bleeding edge anymore. Like Kubernetes and cloud native have been around for going on, I don't know, 8 years or more, right? Probably. So it's become the norm, right? Sysadmins are doing this job, right? They're managing Kubernetes now. So if you're trying to understand how the Cloud Native Computing Foundation works and what it is and how it relates to the Linux Foundation, I can't stress how this exam is really good. It's got a low price point as well. I think you can find training courses on Udemy, that kind of thing. But if you're trying to become a better cloud engineer or even a better cloud architect, I can't rate this exam enough. It's a really great starting point to understand how to apply cloud native fundamentals and patterns and thought processes to your architecture. So I really recommend that you should go and check this out. There is a lot around Kubernetes included in the domains and competencies again, right? Like resources, architecture, that kind of thing. As Kubernetes becomes that more default platform, right, for running our resources. Stuff like container orchestration, what is cloud native architecture, auto scaling, serverless, community and governance, right? How that works, and observability as well, right? So that doesn't seem to be working. Let me see if I just click on that. and then application delivery. Again, a bit like the Linux course that we saw, so GitOps. So we're going back to Git, CI/CD, application delivery fundamentals. This one's got a bit of a lower price point. Obviously, check out for Black Friday deals as well, but it includes one retake. I've got this as well. I really like doing this. I'm studying for my Certified Kubernetes Administrator exam at the moment, which is a lot deeper, right? So we'll talk about that shortly. And then we got advanced. We got like AZ500, AZ305, and the CKA. So, like I said, I've some folks that have obtained these certifications that haven't really got that much real life experience in terms of using Azure on a daily basis. But for me, you really need to understand how the platform works in order to... When I took the AZ500, it was still in its infancy. That's probably what I'm trying to get at, right? So this was a difficult one for me to pass back in the day. Is it valuable? Yes. Do I need to know how to secure most of Azure? Yes. They really chuck the kitchen sink. They're doing a better job of breaking it down into different certification paths now. But if you want to have that security layer attached to your architecture or designing and configuring things in a secure way, the AZ500 is a really good place to start. And then we've got the AZ305, which is the Azure Architect exam. And we'll talk about that shortly because I'm going to go into how do you become a Microsoft certified expert path. And then we've got the Certified Kubernetes Administrator course. You really got to know your stuff for that one. You've got to be dealing with Kubernetes on a daily basis. You do need the experience. This exam is not multiple choice. It actually fires up a terminal. You have to edit YAML files. You have to configure the cluster. You have to run commands. I really like the exam. It's pretty difficult though, but it's a good skill to have. You know, Kubernetes runs on any cloud and even on-prem. So having that skill set and certification is going to look really good on your resume. And that comes back to my cloud native approach here, right? So CKA, Terraform Associate, KCNA, right? And then the AZ104. But let's just scroll down. So I wanted to give you more context. And I have... So you can go off and get a Microsoft certified expert badge, right? If you pass certain exams. So if you just want the generic Azure Cloud Solution Architect path, which I think is a really good, like, broad base, you have to pass the AZ104, take the AZ305, and then you'll be awarded an expert certification, which would be the Microsoft Certified Azure Solutions Architect Expert, which is, and I think I've got a link for it here. Let me bring this on screen. So, as you can see here, right, complete the one prerequisite, and the AZ104 is in there, and then take the 305 exam, and then you get the Azure Solution Architect Expert badge. It's good. It gives you a great base layer. And obviously, you can say that you're a certified architect, when it means that you're able to architect solutions in the correct manner, delivering, the best value for customers, right, or internal technical teams. So if we look at that prerequisite one, the AZ104, right? So the Microsoft Azure Administrator. And then the 305, designing Microsoft Azure Infrastructure Solutions. So check that out. I've also, again, there's another one here. So you would get 1, 2, and then you would get the third certificate or reward, right? If you go through that path. The same for the Azure Cybersecurity Architect path as well. So take the AZ500. I suggest that you take the AZ104 beforehand. then take the SC100 exam, and then you would be awarded the Expert Certification Award, and you would be a Microsoft Certified Cybersecurity Architect, right? Similar to what we just saw before. But this, I think these go hand in hand. Now, this used to just be like one cert, so it's good to see that we've sort of broken it down into individual paths to make it more achievable, right? So, again, take the Azure Security Engineer Associate exam, the AZ500, take the SC100, then you get certified as a Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect Expert. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Now, I could have spent a lot more time on certifications, but I just feel like you can get a certification for everything. So I wanted to try and give you the most broadest pathways so you're able to pivot and do what you enjoy, right? There are loads of certifications out there, but if you're looking for a great foundational base, or you're still trying to figure out what you like doing, then check out these certification paths. I'm going to put links below in the description, right, to the different certification bodies. But yeah, this is what's worked for me, right? It might not necessarily work for you, but it might be a great starting point. So with that in mind, I just want to say thanks for joining in, and as always, if you liked what you've seen, don't forget to like, share, and repeat. Subscribe, tell your friends. Again, I'm trying to give away my knowledge for free, right? To give people a head start as much as possible. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Yeah.